In the desolate stretches of rural Maine, the Eldridge Hotel stood as a haunting silhouette against the bleak sky. Built in the late 19th century, its Victorian architecture loomed over the surrounding wilderness, a relic of a bygone era. Ethan, a writer in search of inspiration, arrived at the hotel one stormy evening. The interior was a labyrinth of ornate corridors and staircases, lit by the flickering flames of gas lamps. The air was thick with the musk of old wood and the faint, unsettling scent of decay. The innkeeper, a gaunt figure named Mr. Holloway, greeted Ethan with a nod, his eyes glinting with an unreadable expression. Ethan was assigned to room 112, infamous among locals for its mysterious past. Guests claimed to hear whispers in the night and see fleeting shadows on the walls. On his first night, Ethan was awakened by a chilling draft. The window, previously shut, was now wide open, overlooking the fog-enshrouded forest. He heard a soft, sorrowful weeping coming from the end of the hallway. Following the sound, he found himself standing before a locked door, the weeping now silent. The next day, Ethan inquired about the locked room. Mr. Holloway's face turned ashen. He reluctantly shared the tale of a bride who had vanished on her wedding night decades ago. Her room, now locked forever, was said to be haunted by her spirit. Driven by curiosity and the prospect of a gripping story, Ethan explored the hotel's shadowed halls and decrepit library. He uncovered tales of disappearances, unexplained accidents, and ghostly apparitions. Each story was a macabre thread in the hotel's dark tapestry. As night fell again, a tempest raged outside, trapping Ethan and a few other guests in the hotel. Together, they shared stories of eerie experiences and unexplained phenomena. The atmosphere grew heavy with dread as the storm howled outside. Ethan decided to investigate the locked room once more. As he approached, the temperature dropped and his breath turned to mist. The door, previously locked tight, creaked open, revealing a room untouched by time, its bridal decor shrouded in dust. Inside, he found an old diary belonging to the vanished bride. The entries spoke of a hidden truth, a secret that the hotel concealed within its walls. As Ethan read the last entry, the air stirred, and a ghostly figure appeared, a young woman in a bridal gown, her eyes filled with eternal sorrow. She whispered a tale of betrayal and a hidden room where the hotel's darkest secrets lay. Guided by the apparition, Ethan found a concealed door in the library. Behind it lay a forgotten chamber, its walls lined with articles and photographs of the missing and the damned, all linked to the hotel. The revelation was shocking, a history of tragedy and darkness that the hotel had absorbed into its very foundation. Ethan realized the hotel was a portal to something sinister and otherworldly, a place where souls were trapped in perpetual torment. As the storm reached its crescendo, Ethan and the guests gathered to confront the malevolent force that haunted the Eldridge Hotel. They conducted a ritual to close the portal, chanting ancient words that echoed through the halls. With a deafening roar, a blinding light engulfed the hotel. When the light subsided, the hotel was silent, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The next morning, Ethan left the Eldridge Hotel, the sun casting a new, hopeful light on the old building. He had uncovered a chilling story, one that would inspire his greatest work. But as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that part of him remained trapped within the hotel's cursed walls. In the heart of New Orleans, amidst the vibrant streets echoing with jazz, stood the St. Augustine Hotel, a grand structure veiled in the city's rich and tumultuous history. Built in the 1800s, it was a jewel of the French Quarter, though many locals avoided it, whispering of its dark past. Journalist Michael Talbot, intrigued by these urban legends, decided to stay at the hotel to uncover the truth. The hotel's facade was a blend of Gothic and French colonial architecture, its windows like watchful eyes. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and a hint of something unidentifiable. The manager, a courteous man named Mr. Lefebvre, shared tales of the hotel's history. It was built on the grounds of an old plantation and had witnessed events from the Civil War. Guests often reported strange occurrences, voices in the night, objects moving on their own, and an eerie feeling of being watched. Michael's room was on the top floor, overlooking the bustling street. The room felt unnervingly cold, and he couldn't shake off the feeling of an unseen presence. That night, he was awakened by the distant sound of a piano playing a melancholic tune. Venturing into the dimly lit hallway, he found it empty, the music fading away as he approached the source. In the hotel's archives, Michael discovered a tragic story about a woman named Marie, a former resident of the plantation. She was known for her beautiful piano playing but had suffered a terrible fate during the Civil War. It was said her spirit lingered, her music echoing her unresolved sorrow. Determined to delve deeper, Michael conducted interviews with the staff and guests. Many shared their own unnerving experiences. A glimpse of a woman in a period dress, the piano playing by itself, and sudden cold drafts. On his final night, Michael awoke to the piano music again, this time accompanied by a soft, sorrowful singing. Compelled, he followed the sound to the hotel's old ballroom. There, in the faint moonlight, he saw the figure of a woman at the piano, her fingers moving gracefully over the keys. Overcome by a mix of fear and curiosity, Michael approached her. As he did, she turned to him, her eyes conveying a deep sadness. Then, in an instant, she vanished, leaving behind a chill in the air and the final fading notes of her song. The next morning, Michael checked out of the hotel, his skepticism shaken. He had come seeking a story but left with an experience that defied explanation. The St. Augustine Hotel was more than just a building. It was a vessel for the city's forgotten tales, a place where the past was inseparably intertwined with the present. In St. Petersburg, overshadowed by the city's grand palaces and cathedrals, stood the old Hotel Volkov. Built in the late 19th century, its Baroque facade and gilded interiors spoke of a bygone era of opulence. However, the locals whispered of the hotel's darker past, filled with tales of ghosts and unexplained phenomena. Elena, a young journalist with a passion for uncovering hidden stories, checked into the Volkov to investigate these rumors. The lobby was a time capsule of elegance, with its grand chandelier and ornate tapestries. Yet there was an unmistakable air of mystery, as if the walls themselves held secrets. The concierge, an elderly man named Ivan, shared hushed tales of the hotel's history. He spoke of aristocrats who vanished without a trace, sightings of spectral figures in the hallways, and the eerie sound of a piano playing in the dead of night from the closed ballroom. Elena's room overlooked the hotel's inner courtyard. It was adorned with antique furniture and heavy velvet drapes. That night, she was awakened by the faint sound of a piano. The melody was haunting and seemed to be luring her out of her room. She followed the sound down a series of dimly lit corridors to the ballroom. The doors, supposedly locked, were ajar. Inside, the ballroom was bathed in moonlight, revealing dust-covered furniture and a grand piano at its center. The music stopped abruptly as she entered, replaced by a chilling silence. In the hotel archives, Elena found old newspapers and journals detailing the hotel's past. One story spoke of a young pianist, a prodigy of her time, who performed at the hotel's grand opening. She had mysteriously disappeared, and some believed her spirit still lingered, forever bound to her last performance. Over the next few days, Elena interviewed staff and guests who shared their unsettling experiences. Some spoke of seeing a young woman in a 19th century dress wandering the halls, her face always obscured by shadows. Others mentioned feeling a sudden chill upon hearing the phantom piano. On her last night, Elena awoke to see a figure standing at the foot of her bed. It was the pianist, her eyes filled with a deep, unspoken sorrow. She pointed towards the ballroom before vanishing into thin air. Elena rushed to the ballroom, where she found a hidden panel behind the piano. It revealed a small, forgotten room with a diary belonging to the pianist. The diary entries revealed a tragic tale of love, betrayal, and a pact made in desperation, which led to her untimely demise. As Elena left the Hotel Volkov, she knew she had uncovered a story that intertwined the hotel's opulent past with a tragic, spectral present. The hotel was a keeper of hidden tales, a place where history and legend blurred into reality. In the shadowy heart of San Francisco, the old Majestic Hotel stood as a monument to the city's past. Built in the early 1900s, its grand Edwardian facade was a stark contrast to the modern buildings around it. Journalist David Emerson, always intrigued by the paranormal, checked into the hotel to investigate rumors of its haunted reputation. The lobby of the Majestic was like stepping back in time, with its antique furnishings and dimly lit chandeliers. The air carried a musty scent, mingling with an undercurrent of something inexplicably unsettling. The concierge, an elderly man with a wealth of stories, whispered of unexplained occurrences, guests hearing whispers in the night, sightings of ghostly apparitions, and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. David's room, on the 4th floor, overlooked a quiet, fog-laden street. The room was quaint, decorated with period furniture, but there was an undeniable chill in the air that couldn't be attributed to the weather outside. The first night, David was roused from sleep by a faint melodic humming coming from the hallway. Following the sound, he found himself in front of a door to a room long since sealed. The humming ceased abruptly, replaced by a profound silence that seemed to echo with the weight of untold stories. Through his research, David learned about the hotel's storied past. It was built on the site of an old hospital, which had served the city during the tumultuous times of the early 20th century, including the 1906 earthquake. Many lives were lost within its walls, and it seemed some of those souls hadn't left. Interviewing staff and guests, David collected a mosaic of eerie experiences. One guest spoke of seeing a woman in a nurse's uniform walking the halls, only to vanish when approached. Another talked of waking up to find an old-fashioned doctor standing at the foot of their bed, his expression one of deep sorrow. On his last night, David decided to stay awake and watch. As the clock struck midnight, the temperature in the room dropped. He saw his breath in the air as he noticed a figure in the corner of the room, a young woman dressed in the garb of an early 20th century nurse. She looked at David, her eyes filled with an unspeakable sadness before fading away into the darkness. David left the Majestic Hotel with more questions than answers. His skepticism had been shaken by what he'd seen and heard. The hotel was not just a building, it was a repository of the city's history, a place where the past lingered, tangible and restless. In the misty mountains of Colorado, nestled among towering pines, stood the old Wellington Hotel. Its Victorian architecture, with steep gables and intricate woodwork, harked back to a bygone era. The hotel, built in the late 1800s, had been a luxurious retreat for the elite, but now it was shrouded in stories and rumors that kept many away. Journalist Anna Reed, fascinated by the paranormal and unexplained, decided to spend a week at the Wellington to investigate the stories. The hotel, isolated and imposing, had a reputation for strange occurrences, unexplained noises, ghost sightings, and a pervasive sense of unease among its guests. Upon arrival, Anna was greeted by the hotel's caretaker, Mr. Clayton, whose family had looked after the Wellington for generations. He shared tales of the hotel's history, including the mysterious disappearance of its original owner, Jonathan Wellington, who was said to have vanished within the hotel itself. Anna's room was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the dense forest. The room was a blend of elegance and time-worn decay. That night, a cold draft woke her. She noticed her window, previously closed, was wide open. The air carried a faint, almost melancholic tune played on a piano. Following the sound, she found herself in the hotel's grand ballroom. The room was empty, save for an old piano at the far end. The music stopped abruptly as she approached, leaving only the sound of the wind whistling through broken panes. In the hotel's library, Anna discovered old records and newspaper clippings about Wellington. Stories of lavish parties, tragic deaths, and whispers of hidden rooms filled the pages. One article detailed Jonathan Wellington's obsession with the occult, hinting at secret gatherings and rituals performed in the hotel's hidden chambers. The staff and a few long-term residents shared their eerie experiences with Anna. One spoke of seeing a man in turn-of-the-century clothing wandering the halls, only to vanish around corners. Others mentioned hearing hushed conversations and laughter from empty rooms. On her final night, Anna awoke to find the figure of a man standing at the foot of her bed. He was dressed in an old-fashioned suit, his eyes empty and staring. He pointed to the wall behind him before fading into the shadows. Compelled to investigate, Anna discovered a hidden door in the wall. Behind it lay a narrow staircase leading down to a forgotten part of the hotel. At the bottom, she found a small chamber, its walls covered in strange symbols and old faded photographs of people in ceremonial garb. In the center of the room was a journal belonging to Jonathan Wellington. The entries revealed his descent into madness, driven by his search for immortality. His final entry was frantic and disjointed, speaking of a ritual that would allow him to live forever within the walls of the hotel. Anna left the Wellington Hotel with a chilling story and a heavy heart. She had come seeking ghosts and had found a tale of obsession and madness. The hotel stood as a silent witness to its own dark history, a history that continued to haunt its halls. In the heart of Savannah, Georgia, known for its haunting beauty and deep-rooted history, stood the old Hearthstone Hotel. Erected in the late 1800s, its Gothic Revival architecture cast an imposing shadow on the cobblestone streets. The hotel's history was as rich as the city itself, with tales of the Civil War, hidden tunnels, and ghostly apparitions woven into its very fabric. Journalist Emily Hart, with a keen interest in the paranormal, checked into the Hearthstone to explore these tales. The interior of the hotel was a tapestry of the past, with antique furnishings and faded portraits adorning the walls. The air was thick with a sense of lingering memories and a subtle, inexplicable unease. The concierge, an elderly gentleman named Mr. Franklin, recounted stories of the hotel's past. He spoke of figures seen in mirrors that vanished when approached, laughter and music heard from empty ballrooms, and the legendary Room 413, where guests reported strange occurrences, a feeling of being watched, sudden temperature drops, and eerie shadows that moved against the laws of light. On her first night, Emily was awakened by the distant sound of a piano. She followed the melody to the hotel's old music room. The room was empty, the piano's lid closed, yet the keys moved as if compelled by invisible hands, playing a haunting, melancholic tune. Delving into the hotel's archives, Emily uncovered a tragic story from the late 1800s. A young woman, Eliza, the daughter of the hotel's original owner, had fallen in love with a soldier during the Civil War. Her lover never returned from battle, and overcome with grief, she took her own life in Room 413. Emily interviewed several guests and staff members, each sharing their own chilling experiences. One guest spoke of seeing a woman in a period dress standing by their bed, her eyes filled with unspeakable sadness. Another talked of feeling a gentle touch on their shoulder, only to turn around and find no one there. On the last night of her stay, Emily decided to sleep in Room 413. As the clock struck midnight, the room grew inexplicably cold. She saw a figure in the mirror, a young woman staring back at her with a mournful expression. As Emily turned around, the figure vanished, leaving behind a faded note on the floor. It was a letter from Eliza to her lost love, speaking of her undying love and eternal wait for his return. Emily left the Hearthstone with a profound sense of the past's grip on the present. The hotel was more than just a building. It was a vessel for the stories and spirits of those who had once walked its halls.